already executed. I opened position for euro at 113.23.5. So I opened short position on euro at 113.23.5. Okay.
And Trump was in some ways a reaction to that.
And in fact, Neil, what you're saying brings up the question of whether Xi Jinping is actually committed to market reform to the extent that predecessors were. Is he willing to give up some free market, developments, if you like, in order to return his community to sort of a more communist community?
Well, Bonnie, I think it's crucial to realize that Xi Jinping has quite consciously shifted away from policies of economic liberalization, and that one of the signatures of his time as General Secretary of the Communist Party has been an increase in the power of the state-owned enterprises. And also, I think perhaps just as importantly, a real tightening ideologically, which is very obvious in Chinese universities. I'm a visiting professor at Tsinghua, but I've seen the atmosphere change from one of relative openness to one in which people are losing their jobs or indeed being subjected to arrest for essentially lecturing on the realities of Chinese history and expressing criticism of this new ideological tightening. I do think there's one qualification, though. One way that the Chinese are trying to counter Trump is by appealing to Wall Street and saying, yeah, we may be communists, but come on in to our financial markets and we'll make it easier for you to come in. Not to get out, of course, because China still has capital controls. But I think one of the interesting subplots here is the way in which Beijing is pitching to Wall Street. And that's a pitch that's getting quite a warm reception from companies ranging from JP Morgan to the big credit card companies. That's an exception, though. The basic trend is for a reimposition of the party's control and a shift away from the more liberal era when we used to talk about ultimately the renminbi being a convertible currency. I think that's all forgotten now.
Neil, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your thoughts on this important and evolving topic. Neil Ferguson, he's a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University. He's also a Bloomberg opinion columnist, talking to us about kind of the communist government in China, Vane, trying to reassert some control over what had been a moderately liberalizing economy. You think about some of the big tech companies that have come to power and have grown so big, whether it's an Alibaba or a Tencent. You wonder what role those companies might have in kind of the evolution within China.
Yeah, or what role they will be allowed to have in some ways, Paul. I'm sure that even their role is being very much watched by the leadership in China. But of course, it is fascinating, particularly on a day when you see the powers that be in China stoke the stock market rally, the Shanghai Composite Index up 5.7% overnight.
Yeah, and that translates here, Bonnie, to the U.S. markets having a strong morning of trading with the S&P 500 up 1.5%, the Dow up 1.4%. This is Bloomberg.
Business. Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rocked that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake or snack on us. Come on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details visit costa.co.uk/terms.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. We can replace your battery at over 700 stores and garages, or even at your home or work with our mobile experts, so you can enjoy an engine that starts first time, every time, and start enjoying the open road again.
Are we nearly there yet?
From battery replacements to tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are
ploughing on,
boxing up goods and rolling them out,
shipping kettles,
instruments to kids,
art for walls,
treats to pets,
shorts for sunny weekends.
To brighten up one British home at a time.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
If you want to find out what the best smart tech is to keep an eye on your front door whilst you're out on your lunchtime run, you could ask a machine, or someone called Mac, or Miguel, or Haley, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
What would the world be like if we listened more? At Honda, our ears are always open to new ideas. Oh, there's one now, knocking on our eardrum.
Okay, stop on profit for Euro USD at 113.21.5. I'm placing stop on profit for Euro USD at 113.21.5. Okay.
Quick take. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Bonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney.
Will technology lead us out of this crisis?
We don't know how many companies can accept people back on their roster.
The Fed seems to have really flexed its muscles.
There's still a coronavirus risk.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
To wring out that buy the dip mentality, that takes time.
Are we looking at a more damaging break in the labor market? Does the shape of the yield curve matter? We're looking at late 2021, early 2022, where it really feels quote-unquote normal.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Bonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
This hour, we're going to be looking at what responsibilities employers have to protect their employees from coronavirus. We'll also be speaking with Julie Pearl, CEO of Pearl Law Group, on the ramifications of Trump's executive order suspending some visas for foreign-born talent. First, let's get a news update now, a Bloomberg Business Flash even, from John Tucker.
And we have a risk-on rally today, and it's being led by technology shares. Well, the S&P 500, let's start there, heading toward its fifth straight increase. The NASDAQ at a record. You have high-flying tech names like Amazon.com and Tesla among the best performers. In fact, Amazon touched $3,000 a share just a little earlier, just hovering around that range right now. Uber Technologies surging after the company agreed to buy Postmates. That's a $2.65 billion all-stock deal. And in Europe, the stock 600, that climbed more than 1%, while developing nation stocks added more than 2%. Michael Hewson, CMC Markets chief market analyst, says several things will push equity markets even higher from here.
The prospect that we could get another U.S. fiscal stimulus as well, particularly given that we are seeing these rises in coronavirus cases, I think it's probably more or less inevitable that we'll get one. And ultimately, the economic data is continuing to improve. So you've got two factors, I think, helping.
And of the 11 industry groups in the S&P 500, there's only one in the red, utility sector. That is lower. Right now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 362 points. That's a rise of 1.4%. We're at 26,188. The S&P 500 is up 47 points, a rise of 1.5%. We're at 3176. And the NASDAQ Composite Index, 2.2% higher, up 223 points at a record 10,431. As we check treasuries right now, the 10-year yield 0.70%, the 2-year at 0.16%. And Brent crude up 50 cents at $43.30 a barrel. And we check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets continues with Paul and Bonnie.
John Tucker, thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. Green on the screen, as John was just reporting. Let's get a sense of what's going on in the world of small and mid-cap stocks. We can do that with Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson. Dave, what are you looking at?
Well, smaller companies not quite as green as larger ones at the moment. The Russell 2000 index up 1.2%, and the S&P 500 is higher by 1.5%. That said, the Russell's biggest gain belongs to Waiter Holdings, whose ticker is WTRH. The food delivery service has risen almost 20%. Preliminary second quarter results showed an unexpected profit as sales beat analysts' average estimate in a Bloomberg survey. Seneca Foods, ticker SENEA, has climbed almost 11%. The fruit and vegetable processor made money in the fiscal fourth quarter as sales climbed 17% from a year ago. And Nautilus, ticker NLS, has advanced almost 9%. The exercise equipment maker said late last week it's seeking a buyer for its Octane Fitness unit, which makes elliptical machines. Nautilus wanted to focus on the home equipment market. One of the Russell's steepest declines belongs to Applied Therapeutics, ticker APLT. The drug developer down 9.5% after saying a report last week by short-selling research firm Biotech Research Partners was fraudulent. And 89 Bio, ticker ETNB, is down 8.7%. The drug developer plans to sell 2.2 million shares. That works out to a 14% stake.
Always such interesting stories going on in the small cap universe. Dave Wilson, thank you. That is Dave Wilson, N.I. Wilson. Let's take a look at the broader markets now, cross-asset, and bring in Elena Popina of Bloomberg News, who's been following all of the action overnight and into today. Elena, we clearly have a nice rally here in the United States. Once again, this market just doesn't know which other direction to go except higher. The Nasdaq up 2.25%. We had the Shanghai Composite up 5.7% overnight. Are there asset classes suffering as a result of this today?
Well, it's all green, Bonnie, today, and we can thank China for that green. Obviously, technology stocks, as Dave mentioned earlier, are the bigger gainers. Today, we're seeing the green in Amazon, we're seeing the green in Uber Technologies. That sector, technology stocks, have been propelling the market all the way since the market trough in late March. So we can say that as long as that sector remains high in the green, as long as it remains healthy, other laggards, the sectors that haven't been performing that well, can keep outperforming just because a rising tide lifts all boats. So that is clearly what we have been seeing with that, with a clear risk-on session today, the fifth day of advance for the S&P 500.
So, Elena, one thing we're clearly noting in this market move up is a complete lack of breadth, if you will. It's really being driven by a handful of stocks, some of the big tech stocks that we all know. Amazon over $3,000 a share today. How concerned are market professionals about the relative lack of breadth for this advance?
They were concerned back in February when the S&P hit its last all-time high on February 19th. What they think right now is they don't care too much about valuation, and these stocks are very expensive on the price-to-earnings basis. As long as these stocks can show growth and have very clean balance sheets and very clean momentum. So that's all the market seems to be carrying right now. We have a lot of companies that are deeply in debt. We have a lot of companies that have troubled finances. So as long as we know that the market has this handful of stocks that they can rely on, and these stocks, mind you, are very crowded at this point, but that gives the market some confidence that there are some sectors of the market that can help the broader economy. It can help the broader recovery. Well, that is to say that the markets don't look at the COVID stats right now, and the markets are overlooking it. So we may see another negative headline tomorrow or later in the week, and we can have a risk-off sentiment. Now that you're right in saying that there is a lot of concern that technology stocks and the S&P 500 are rallying a little bit too far, too much for all the negative stats that we're seeing regarding the coronavirus cases.
Elena, where is the money coming from? Is it from the sidelines or from some other asset class?
It's a great point, Bonnie. We had some stats from Morgan Stanley, I believe, last week that said that, fund managers, professional investors still have near record cash positions. So they did put some cash into the market in the second quarter, but they still have some money to spend. So, they are catching up with the broader market. They are just, being a little bit late to the game at this point after the S&P's advance since late March. But yes, that's professional fund managers and hedge funds that were, net short the S&P for a number of consecutive weeks until last week when they covered that short position to a large extent. So it seems that for now, a lot of professional investors are just deciding to put the money into the stock market with the advance that we're seeing.
Elena, thanks so much for joining us, giving that overview of the equity markets. Elena Popina, she is equity markets reporter for Bloomberg News, joining us. And again, Vani, another green day on the screen. And as Elena mentioned, I like how she put it, kind of the market's overlooking or looking past some of these negative metrics we're seeing on the virus, where, of course, back in March and April, that was front and center.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, right now, because we're getting positive headlines on reopenings, New York going into phase 3 and so on, it seems like that is definitely helping things. But phase 3 is not phase 3 of 3 weeks ago. We don't have indoor dining. We just have, some more small businesses opening with very strict conditions attached.
Right, and you think about some of these big economies in Southern California and Texas and Florida really having some problems with their reopenings. The question is, how will that impact some of the metrics and economic data going forward? We'll find out. Right now, let's head down to Washington, D.C. for world and national headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan, what do you have for us?
Well, Paul, coronavirus cases do continue to climb in the Sun Belt, though Florida just reported a 3.2% increase in infections. That is below the previous 7-day average of 5.1%. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows is trying to clarify President Trump's recent contention that 99% of cases are totally harmless.
If you look at the vast majority of those from 65 years of age and younger, if they don't have a comorbidity, we're looking at this as not only not as dangerous as a number of other things that could potentially cause a loss of life.
Earlier, Meadows told Fox News there's no need for a nationwide mask mandate. He says the president sees it as a state-by-state issue. Meantime, President Trump is suggesting an incident that led to change at NASCAR was a hoax. In a tweet, the president asked whether Bubba Wallace, the only black driver on the circuit, has apologized after a rope tied as a noose was found at his Talladega garage. The president suggested that and the decision to ban the Confederate flag at races have led to a ratings decline for NASCAR. The latest racially charged statement from the president after more than a month of protest across the country. Police in Atlanta have put out a $10,000 reward for 2 suspects in the killing of an 8-year-old girl near the Wendy's, where a white police officer shot and killed a black man last month. Secoria Turner was killed after armed protesters shot into her car as she and her mother tried to drive onto an illegally blocked parking lot. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms.
This random wild west shoot 'em up because you can, it's gotta stop.
Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg.
Coronavirus proved that every aspect of our lives, from business to health, is connected to Asia.
Healthcare firms testing the appetite for IPOs in Hong Kong too.
But you already knew that.
COVID-19 certainly had an impact on this.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia, tonight at 6 Eastern.
What does that mean for Asia if the dollar remains on the back foot for the foreseeable future?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
COVID-19. On days when it seems there are nothing but questions.
What about the pandemic emergency purchase program in Europe?
What's the medical side of this?
We try to ask good ones.
How long until we have an answer on what drugs can help us fight this pandemic?
How do you think this has the potential to rattle markets?
Does that mean we should shut down?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
It's a rather controversial question being asked.
Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Right now, Doctors Without Borders medical teams are operating in some of the most remote and dangerous corners of the world. When front yards become front lines, at the crossroads of conflict and epidemic, where there are no hospitals, that's where we operate. Your response is critical to our response in places where few others will go. That's where we operate. Learn more at doctorswithoutborders.org.
If knowledge is power...
Hey, I'm Robin, one of the tech experts here to help you at Curry's PC World. I'm not just a voice on the radio. You can now come into your local store and talk tech with a human being like me. Just the news you needed this afternoon. We've put all the right measures in place to help you again safely in your local Staples Corner store. The tech experts are back in town. So come in and see if that washing machine can handle all that laundry. And welcome back to your local Curry's PC World.
Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rock that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake, or snack on us. Come on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details, visit costa.co.uk/terms.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Unpredictability.
Moving stop on profit for euro to 113.5. Another £1,000 profit if it will reach this level, if it will go up. Okay? So stop on profit from 113.23.5 to 113.13.5.
Safe? TuneIn has the latest guidelines from the CDC. Home alone or with housemates, stay home as much as possible. Try to allow only people you live with into your home. Wash your hands. If you're sick, stay home and isolate from housemates. For the latest stories and updates on COVID-19, search Coronavirus News on TuneIn.
How do you keep track of all your favorite stations and podcasts? Easy. You add them to your favorites list. Just find the audio you want to bookmark and tap the heart icon. Then, whenever you want to browse your favorites, you'll find everything under the Favorites tab.
Staying current on college hoops starts here on the Eye on College Basketball podcast. CBS sports columnists Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander bring you commentary, insider information, and statistical analysis covering the entire NCAA.
The amount of earning potential you could have had there, or if you had gone to play at any other place with a chance to play in the NCAA tournament, win a national championship, none of us would have faulted Cunningham for doing that, but he decided this is where he wants to be in the face of a postseason.
Search Eye on College Basketball on TuneIn to listen.
Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more get back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races.
Looking for your daily fix of NFL news and analysis?
In that. So we had to blow it up into Super Bowl predictions instead. Because we
Look no further than the Pick Six podcast, where CBS sports writer Will Brinson gets you up to speed with what's trending in the NFL that day, so that you're always in the know.
Yeah, it's pretty revealing of Brince's methodology for predictions. When he gets mad at people for predicting good teams are going to win the Super Bowl or good players are going to win major awards. That's how you wind up.
Search Pick Six on TuneIn to listen.
Today at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. U.S. stocks jumping today. Tech shares, they're leading the way. The NASDAQ Composite Index rising to a record. You have the high-flying tech names like Amazon.com, Tesla among the best performers, and Uber is surging after the company agreed to buy Postmates. We have Amazon.com shares topping 3,000 right now, up over 4.3% for the first time. This extends a rally that's left most of the analysts who cover Amazon.com kind of in the dust. Shares of the e-commerce giant climbing, again, 4.41%. So that brings gains so far this year to 63%. Well, don't fight the Fed, and the trend is your friend. Alicia Levine, chief strategist at BNY Mellon Investment Management, says she's telling clients to stay in the stock market amid stimulus measures from the Federal Reserve as well as the U.S. government. Right now, we have the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 373 points. That's a rise of 1.5%. We're at 26,201. The S&P 500 is up 49 points. That's a rise of 1.6%. Its fifth straight increase, 3179 right now for the index. And the NASDAQ at a record. NASDAQ Composite Index up 240 points, a rise of 2.3%. We're at 10,447. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Bonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, as U.S. employers continue to reopen their businesses and the economy overall, one of the key questions being asked is, to what degree are employers responsible for maintaining a healthy and safe work environment? To get some answers, we welcome Emma Court. She's a healthcare reporter for Bloomberg News. Emma, thanks so much for joining us here. Give us a sense of maybe the whole paradigm of what we're seeing as businesses open up. What are they doing to ensure the health and safety of their employees coming back?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Workplace safety has become, a really kind of new and different paradigm today, right? As employers, some of them have been, operating throughout the pandemic. Some of them are starting to push to return to work, for the first time, pushing maybe smaller cohorts of employees at the beginning. And as part of that, we're seeing a lot of different measures being deployed. We've been talking about temperature screenings for a long time, symptom checkers, which means, maybe your employer sends you a list of 4 questions you have to answer before you come into the office. Do you have symptoms, things like that? Have you been in high-risk situations, like a big group of people or an event indoors, things like that? Masks at work, even physical barriers like plexiglass, for instance, hand sanitizer everywhere. But interestingly, testing, which has become such a first-line mechanism of ensuring public health in the community, it's sort of our only option absent a vaccine in terms of ensuring this virus doesn't spread really rapidly from person to person. That has actually been a really small element of employers back to work pushes, and there are a variety of reasons for that, but a big one is cost and the sort of crucial limitations of how these tests can be deployed. You can't really test someone and say, okay, you're all clear and we don't have to worry about you anymore getting sick. That's not how these tests work. They're the diagnostic tests that we have right now say, at this moment in time when you were tested, you do not have COVID-19. There's also an issue of false negatives. But mainly there's an issue of what if you leave the testing site and you go into the parking lot and you get sick? How helpful is the test then? So these are things employers are really kind of wrestling with as they think about whether to have employees at work and what kinds of mechanisms to have in place there.
What are employers responsible for and who is regulating that? Is it the unions? Is there anything in federal government suggestions?
Yeah, Yeah, there's been a variety of recommendations in terms of how to, return to work. And it sort of depends on where you look. Everyone has sort of a booklet of recommendations or requirements in some cases. Local governments, state governments, the CDC has recommendations. EEOC has put out recommendations, even specifically on testing, saying you can use diagnostic testing, but there are other kinds of testing. You can't make a requirement to go back to work. So it depends on the industry and where you are and things like that. But it does present a sort of patchwork of requirements and recommendations depending on where you are. And of course, local conditions factor into this a lot too, right? I'm here in New York where, obviously was a very big hotspot, earlier in the pandemic, and now, perhaps more people are returning to work, whereas other parts of the country, the situation in terms of COVID-19 is very different.
So, Emma, to what extent do we know kind of the liability businesses may have from employees saying you're suing them and because you brought me back into a unsafe work environment?
Yeah, it's a really interesting and important question, and one that's sort of still being figured out right now. I mean, with regards to testing specifically, we've seen, a union that represents employees in casinos in Vegas sue certain casinos, saying you need to make, testing a part of the return to work strategy. Like this has to be a mandatory part of this push. But we've also seen, a lot of lawsuits being filed over. This is something that's probably going to be litigated for a long time. And it's unclear, a big question that comes up around that is, can you prove that you got coronavirus, you got COVID-19 at work? And it's not clear how well anyone would be able to prove that. I mean, it depends on what the bar is, how the bar is set by courts.
What will be the test case? Is there a test case out there yet, or do we have to wait and see for a few more months?
I think this is going to take a while to settle. Many employers, especially large employers that operate in many jurisdictions, are still wrestling with these issues. And I think we are also going to see standards evolve and change as testing technology gets better. For instance, as people set standards for different industries. A lot of employers that operate in places around the country have tried to, because they're facing this sort of patchwork of different requirements and guidance, have tried to meet sort of the highest standards, right? Because it's easier if you're operating in multiple jurisdictions. But, the bar may be lower for, small businesses or other kinds of players. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these things shake out and to see if employers go out there and say, we are setting the highest possible standards for our workplace, maybe become a big incentive for employees to want to work there.
Exactly. It's going to be fascinating. I mean, will countries even be suing other countries if travellers brought it in? Our thanks to Emma Court, healthcare reporter for Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks are rising as traders return to their desks from the holiday weekend. The bulls in control, betting the worst of the pandemic could be behind us. The Dow rising more than 350 points. A gauge of service industries from the Institute for Supply Management jumped to a 4-month high in June. It showed the resumption of growth as the economy reopened more broadly from pandemic-induced lockdowns. The rebound at service providers follows a similar jump in the group's manufacturing index. Shares of Tesla rising after 3 analysts lifted the electric car maker's price target. Last week, Tesla reported a sequential gain in quarterly deliveries. And Lucky Brand Jeans has filed for bankruptcy. The closely held company has entered into an asset purchase agreement with Spark Group, which operates brands including Aeropostale and Nautica. Brand manager Authentic Brands will acquire Lucky's intellectual property. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, kids, Dad's going to teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers. With COVID-19,
Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rock that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake, or snack on us. Come on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details, visit costa.co.uk/terms.
In line with government guidelines, face coverings are now compulsory on public transport. At Asda, you can get a 4-pack of Prima disposable face coverings for £2.80, or a 2-pack of washable face coverings from £2.50. Asda, we're all in this together. Selected stores subject to availability.
And action!
I was offered one.
Cut. That's not on the script.
I was offered one. Get in.
Ladies and gentlemen, I was offered one.
Come, boy. I was offered one.
Don't take our word for it. 9 out of 10 people said they were offered a great value deal with O2. Get yours today, in-store, online, or by phone.
I was offered one too. O2 Retail Exit Survey 309 of 348 agreed with the statement. O2 offered me a great value deal. For full verification, see o2.co.uk/terms.
London. Toolstation are here to help get your job safely started and finished. With over 60 branches within the M25. All open with social distancing and contactless click and collect from 5 minutes. And with 20,000 top trade quality products to choose from. Order online now for collection in London branches and get £5 off when you spend over £30 with the code LON530. So, get your job started at toolstation.com. Terms and conditions apply.
When you're buying tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to a computer or to someone called Colin, or Sean, or Luth, or Ange, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
What would the world be like if we listened more? At Honda, our ears are always open to new ideas. Oh, there's one now, knocking on our eardrum. What's that? What if we made a car with cameras instead of wing mirrors? A robot mower that knows when it's time to cut the grass. A self-balancing motorcycle. And what if by 2022, all of our mainstream cars were hybrid or electric? Huh. Great idea. Thanks, ears. Honda, the power of dreams.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we're going to speak with Julie Pearl. She's the CEO of immigration law firm Pearl Law on why Trump's visa ban could be bad news for the U.S. economy. Plus, we're going to take a look at the Berkshire Hathaway deal. Warren Buffett getting back into the game, buying energy assets. We'll dig deep on that deal. But first, let's go to John Tucker, Bloomberg News, for a Bloomberg Business Flash. John.
And Paul, good morning. No end in sight to this rally. Stimulus from the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government continues to power stocks higher. The NASDAQ Composite Index at a record. Amazon.com shares topping 3,000 for the first time It's been 15 weeks since the S&P 500 hit its low. It's now 42% from March 23rd. A couple of pandemic-related headlines from Florida and Arizona may also be giving a boost to risk assets. Virus cases in Florida and Arizona recording increases below their 7-day average. Shares of Tesla rising as much as 6% after 3 analysts lifted the electric car maker's price target. The boost comes after the company delivered more Model 3 and Y vehicles in the second quarter than expected. It's not all optimism out there. At Citigroup Markets, Catherine Mann says she's waiting for the other shoe to drop in the U.S. labor market.
Thinking about how are firms planning on weathering the next half of the year in order to survive into 2021. They're going to do that by cutting.
Right now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 357 points. That's a rise of 1.4%. We're at 26,184. S&P 500 at 49 points. That's up 1.6% at 3179, a record there. The Nasdaq Composite Index, I should say, is at the record, up 244 points, a rise of 2.4% at 10,452. Right now, we have the 10-year Treasury yield below 0.7% at 0.695. And we had Brent crude up 68 cents at $43.48 a barrel. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Vonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Chief Staff Mark Meadows saying President Trump will issue executive orders on many things in the near future, including immigration. But we already know that President Trump has issued an executive order suspending H-1B and L-1 and other temporary visas for highly skilled, foreign-born, often U.S. educated, it should be said, talent. Let's bring in somebody who knows a lot about this. Julie Pearl is CEO of Pearl Law Group in San Francisco. Julie, have we seen any material impact on the numbers of people in the United States because of this executive order?
People, yes, we're certainly seeing people already making decisions that they can't come. There's a certain number of the L1, the intercompany transfer visas, who have people already shuttling to other countries who would have been contributing their talents and tax dollars here.
So, Julie, what's the argument on the part of the administration here? Does this move really save American jobs?
No, it's given as a reason, and it stands to reason that we're still needing more jobs here. The only issue is that the very order prohibited people who are taking jobs that Americans cannot fill. By definition, this intercompany transferee, the L1 visa, for example, by our own law, has to be somebody who has worked for the company overseas and already has special knowledge about that particular company. And so no American's going to get that job. The others are H-1B workers. You've heard a lot about them. They're 2.9% of the workforce, and just a lot higher percentage of our patents and all that. But if American workers could fill those jobs, these people would not be. They would not be in need. The employers would not be paying. In the first 2-3 years, they pay up to $20,000 in government and legal fees for these people. So no, we don't believe that they will create a single job for U.S. workers.
And as you point out, H-1B visas represent only 2.9% of U.S. workers. And if that statistic weren't enough, there's another one associated with it, which is that they're involved in 1 in 4 patents. So what happens if there is a blanket ban on H-1B visas? It lasts beyond the end of the year. I mean, do current H-1B workers have to leave?
As of now, no. If you have an H-1B visa and you're already in the country, no. But we don't know about those who are... those right now outside the country cannot come in, and there are a lot of those as well. If you think about just like the competition for talent in a global economy, what are the odds that of the 7 billion people in the world that all of the talent you might need to be the very best in any discipline is right among our less than 400 million people, right? So who knows what impact that'll have on us worldwide in the future. But already, it's interesting. Even if this order is being challenged in the courts, and even if it succeeds because of the lack of notice, you saw we've had some things like with DACA, the administrative notice that is required. the message has already gotten through, and it's already sent a chilling effect throughout the international community that you can't count on a deal made with the U.S. Never before in our history have people been awarded visas and then told, oh, just kidding, you can't come in. You put your whole life on hold. Your kids, your family was supposed to come here. You are the sort of person who has a choice of going anywhere in the world. And guess what? We're not honoring our deal. So that effect could go on for years. These people plan ahead.
So, Julie, I used to cover as a securities analyst at a lot of the internet companies like Facebook and Alphabet, and it seems like on every conference call, when asked about one of their biggest challenges, it is finding and retaining top engineering and computer science talent. And I know those tech companies really depend on these H-1B visas because they simply can't source the jobs internally in the U.S. U.S. universities are not producing enough engineers, computer scientists, and so on. What's been the response from the tech industry?
Well, you've seen it be very strong. We generally don't see the CEOs coming out of the record. Immigration is just hot potato people don't want to mention, but there have been many CEOs coming saying you can't do this. Even Tim Cook at Apple and others. It's just no one, Republican nor Democrat, has attacked talent. As you may know, I started a firm 25 years ago with a former head of U.S. immigration under Presidents Reagan and Bush Sr., and they, no matter how they felt about people who wanted to come in illegally, were always pro, talent. So we were really surprised. Even some Republican senators said, do not cut this off. So here's an interesting thing. Before COVID, a lot of people, especially in engineering, thought, like Marissa Meyer did when she was at Yahoo, that we had to have the talent here in the U.S. Because they wanted teams to work together. And then since COVID, a lot of people proved, because they had to, that they could work remotely. And a study of global mobility managers that we did at our firm found that 83% of managers are now more willing to hire people, let's say in Canada or somewhere else. So anyway, it's going to be a huge gift for Canada.
It's going to be a huge gift for our friends in Canada and other parts, and a loss for the United States. Julie Pearl, CEO of the Pearl Law Group, talking to us about this immigration of these highly skilled and trained workers, which, again, the tech companies, they just kind of right down the line, they tell you how important finding and retaining tech talent is, and they need those visas. But right now, let's head down to Washington, D.C. for World and National Headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Paul, we're continuing to track the reopening, and there is another dial back to report. Miami-Dade, Florida Mayor Carlos Jimenez is issuing an executive order for dine-in restaurants, gyms, and party venues to close as of Wednesday. Jimenez says beaches in Miami-Dade could close again if there's crowding. He says office buildings and stores can stay open for now. The coronavirus is putting the return of Major League Baseball in doubt. The World Series champion Washington Nationals shut down their spring training this morning after just 3 days. General Manager Mike Rizzo says all players and staff were tested for COVID-19 last Friday, and they're still waiting for results from the Major League Baseball lab. Rizzo says he cannot put employees at risk. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows says President Trump is focused on the recovery and another round of stimulus, though that might not include a second round of checks for individuals.
Whether that is making sure that the take-home check for every American is greater with a payroll tax deduction, whether it's making sure that we provide incentives for American manufacturing to be brought back from abroad.
Florida reported another 3.2% increase in COVID-19 infections today. Arizona's case count went up another 3.4%. Both were below the previous 7-day average. And New York reported its coronavirus cases rose by 0.1%. A tell-all memoir from President Trump's niece will be coming out earlier than expected. According to Dow Jones, publisher Simon & Schuster has moved up the release date for Mary Trump's book 2 weeks to July 14th. Global news on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
For the Jewish Communal Fund, Noel Spiegel, former senior partner with Deloitte & Touche and past JCF president, discusses the advantages of a donor-advised fund over a private foundation.
There's a lot involved in having a private foundation. You need to engage attorneys, you need to engage accountants, file tax returns. At JCF, all of that is done for you. You don't have to get involved in anything other than making your contribution to your fund and then determining which grants that you want to make.
A JCF fund may be be opened with a minimum $5,000 contribution of cash or appreciated securities and can be used as an alternative to or together with a private foundation.
If you have a foundation, you have to list all of the contributions that you made. Potentially anybody, because the information is public, can find out exactly which organizations a foundation has made charitable contributions to.
Let JCF simplify your philanthropy and protect your privacy. Learn more about JCF's private client group at jcfny.org.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit hud.gov/fairhousing. That's hud.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
The market's in focus.
Hey, I'm Robin, one of the tech experts here to help you at Curry's PC World. I'm not just a voice on the radio. You can now come into your local store and talk tech with a human being like me. Just the news you needed this afternoon. We've put all the right measures in place to help you again safely in your local Staples Corner store. The tech experts are back in town. So come in and see if that laptop can help you improve your home setup. And welcome back to your local Curry's PC World.
Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rock that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake, or snack on us. Go on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details, visit costa.co.uk/terms.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. Why not book an MOT to get you safely back on the road? With over 600,000 carried out every year at 350 garages, you can always count on our experts. And get back to visiting those you've missed the most. Hi, Mum. From a safe distance, of course. From MOTs to battery replacements and tyre fittings, there's no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Ever wondered how people's postcode lottery works? Easy. Your postcode is your ticket. And every weekday it gives you the chance to win £1,000 or £30,000 every weekend. And every month players in your postcode could win a share of £3 million. Join in at postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 23rd of July to play in the August draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
So I often struggled at school. Once, when we had a maths test, I looked around the room and everyone was just doing it. And I couldn't, and I began to cry. But my teacher came over and said, it might look like one big problem, but it's just a handful of small ones. And you can deal with that. I hear her voice in my head for every problem I face to this day.
Teaching. Every lesson shapes a life. You could get £26,000 tax-free to train as a teacher. Subject to eligibility, selected subjects only. Search Get Into Teaching.
Are you ready to play?
This summer ITV Hub is fully loaded with loads more full series.
Gonna get messy.
Yeah, like it's fuller than ever. From Love Island to Liar, we have divas lined up back to back.
Filmy and Sister.
From the GC and the Ibiza Weekender reps to the Real Housewives, it's round full of lots and lots of...
This is getting too much now.
Laughs, tears and smiles. It's crammed full with full series like Quiz, Flesh and Blood, Harry's Heroes and Manx in Mumbai. We've grown, expanded and just gone a bit extra this summer.
Give me some more.
ITV Hub fully loaded this summer.
The best experience possible.
Did we mention it's looking fuller than ever?
In line with government guidelines, face coverings are now compulsory on public transport. At Asda, you can get a 4-pack of Prima disposable face coverings for £2.80, or a 2-pack of washable face coverings from £2.50. Asda, we're all in this together. Selected stores subject to availability.
At Simply Be, we've stepped up our sales so that you can step out in style. With up to 80% off summer clothing, you'll find some seriously must-have fashion at prices that are simply too good to miss. So go on, skip those weekend queues and treat yourself to something gorgeous. Shop the sale at simplybe.co.uk.
The big Volkswagen event is now on. If you're after a new Volkswagen, we offer to pay your first 3 months finance payments and an additional £500 to £1,000 contribution to your deposit at 3.8% APR representative. Hello, sir. Do any take your fancy?
Well, yes, a new Golf or T-Cross. A Tiguan. No, Passat. Oh, I need to sit down.
Here, have a seat.
The big Volkswagen event. With every type of car on offer, you may have trouble choosing. With Solutions Personal Contract Plan until 12th of July, excludes e-Golf at participating retailers only. Minimum 46 months to receive 3 months finance payments. Indemnities may be required. Volkswagen Finance. Contact your local retailer to book an appointment.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. We're being brought to you by SEI. Crises and challenges highlight the power of partnership and character. Work for the common good. One community. SEI. Go to SEIC.com/banks. U.S. stocks are jumping today. Tech shares leading the way. The S&P 500 headed toward its 5th straight increase, and the Nasdaq Composite Index rising to a record. Amazon.com and Tesla among the best performers. Uber Technologies, that is also surging after the company agreed to buy Postmates. Right now, the Dow up 390 points, a rise of 1.5%. We're at 26,218. The S&P 500 up 50 points, a rise of 1.6% at 3180. And the Nasdaq Composite Index up 251 points, a rise of 2.5% at 10,459. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Vonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, Merger Monday is back. We had Uber in the market with a deal to get it increase its presence in the food delivery market. Then, of course, Warren Buffett on a $10 billion deal getting into the energy space. Let's break down these deals for you. First, Mandeep Singh, Senior Technology Analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. So, Mandeep, we know Uber has really been looking to expand its presence in the Eats business, particularly during this pandemic. Give us a sense of what they're doing here with this deal.
Sure. So essentially, they are using their stock to eliminate or take out one of the competitors, in this case, Postmates being the smaller player in the food delivery market. And I think it makes sense because the market right now currently is valuing the food delivery companies much higher than, the Lyfts and the Ubers, Uber as an aggregate. And so the fact that they are paying it using stock and the stock has gone up is a validation of the fact that, this is a good deal. And what you're seeing right now is a reflection of an aggregation of market share. So it will help their EBITDA. They talked about $200 million in cost synergies. We think it should be at least $500 million in cost synergies for them to get to EBITDA positive on the Eats side. And they should be able to get there simply because you talked about the tailwind from the COVID situation. So this is a large market. There are large players. Amazon is focusing on delivery, grocery delivery. We think Uber will get into grocery delivery using Postmates, which made early inroads. So net-net, it's a large addressable market. Eliminating one of the competitors is a positive step. And given Uber didn't have a brand on the food delivery side, Postmates will definitely help.
Will there be further consolidation, particularly since these are really just delivery services in the sense that there are massive kitchens that make the meals of certain restaurants? Isn't that how it works, Mandeep? It's not that each restaurant sends out a bunch of food to get delivered.
That's correct, yes. So there is an element of technology in terms of how they route, how they batch this stuff, how they do the matching, and that is what drives the efficiency in this business. At the end of the day, the more data you collect in this business, the better you are going to get in terms of, the supply-demand dynamics. And Postmates, like I said, had a broader offering in terms of both food delivery, grocery delivery, in terms of the matching and the routing that I mentioned. And we think it's just because they were more focused, their technology stack, Postmates technology stack, is marginally better than Uber Eats, even though Uber Eats had the scale. And so bringing Postmates, which was more focused on a broader offering, should help, improve the technology stack for Uber.
So just real quickly, I thought, Mandeep, that the Uber Eats business was a money loser for Uber. Has the pandemic changed that so much?
No, in fact, they talked about $200 million in cost synergies, and that's not going to help them get to positive EBITDA. So Postmates will contribute about 20% to the top line. But even with the cost synergies, the EBITDA will still be negative. So, but net, when you think about the scale that Uber has and the fact that their technology stack should get better with Postmates, we think with $500 million in cost synergies, and they can get to that by eliminating marketing costs and other, they should get to positive EBITDA. So at least it should not be money losing next year.
All right, Mandeep, thank you. Uber up at 6% in today's trading. That's Mandeep Singh, Senior Analyst for Technology for Bloomberg Intelligence. Moving a little sideways now, we have another deal in focus, and that is, of course, the Berkshire Hathaway deal. So let's bring in Catherine Chiglinski from our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Catherine, you cover Berkshire Hathaway. How interesting is it that the big deal that we were all waiting for is actually, a bunch of natural gas pipeline and storage assets from Old Dominion?
Well, it's interesting in the way that if you tuned into Berkshire's annual meeting in May, Buffett was really quite pessimistic about the situation and very cautious. And so it's interesting that he finally made a move. But what is unique about this deal is that it wasn't a huge acquisition. In total, the enterprise value is $9.7 billion, but that's just a slice of Berkshire's $137 billion cash pile. So, if anything, this more looks like it's a strategic deal, and it looks like it fits quite well with his other kind of energy empire. That it'll give him a much bigger reach and a lot of natural gas assets. So it's kind of a strategic fit, and it really looks like a deal that will benefit Berkshire, but maybe wasn't the blockbuster everyone was waiting for.
So, again, that kind of begs the question here, what does he do? I mean, what's the smart money saying that Warren Buffett could put, $100 or $200 billion of, asset cash to work at some point?
Well, it's hard. I mean, his universe is quite limited, just since he has so much cash to be able to make a dent in that pile. He has to find a company that's big enough. And he's faced a lot of pressure from competition. If you think about private equity, he's really up against those guys, which are kind of flush with capital. And, he said earlier in May, he was hearing from companies at first in March when this pandemic really set in. But then the Federal Reserve intervened, and he credited the central bank with, really helping to keep markets calm, and it was a good thing overall. But he did note that it actually meant that he wasn't able to strike a lot of those deals that he normally would have gone for. So I think, while he's definitely still obviously on the hunt for an elephant, and if a big interesting company came along, I'm sure he'd be willing to kind of put up money for the right price. But I think, there's a couple factors that are just sort of beyond his control right now.
Yeah, it was really fascinating. Definitely sticking to his comfort zone, and that's actually the phrase that you use as well, Catherine, when we talk about this Dominion Energy deal. So $137 billion, and this is just less than $10 billion. Not nothing, but not huge relative to the size of Berkshire Hathaway. Our thanks to Catherine Chiglinski, who covers all things Berkshire for us. And Paul, it's going to be quite the week, I think, in equities trading. I mean, it's midsummer. It's post a long weekend. If you were waiting for something, just a little calm, you're not getting it.
No, you're not getting it, and there's obviously more economic data to come. And I think, again, aside from the economic data that we focus on and the company data that we focus on, Vani, now there's obviously the healthcare data and those metrics that we and market participants focus on. And specifically right now, it's kind of the reopenings and then dialing back the reopenings. And that's kind of where I think a lot of investors are focusing their attention, because that really that really drives, economic activity, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months down the road. So lots for investors to discount here.
For sure. And the latest headline being the Miami-Dade mayor closing restaurants except for takeout again, gyms and other entertainment venues. So essentially, rolling back, as you said, Harvard out with the headline too. It's planning to bring back
extraordinary.
40% of students for the fall term. But we'll see if that actually happens too. From Paul and myself, you are listening to Bloomberg Markets. Our thanks to producers Sam Langa and Tim Harrow.
In addition to Bloomberg Radio, you can catch the latest news and biggest newsmakers on Bloomberg Television. Look for us on DirecTV Channel 353 or check your local listings. At the start of every day,
Where do hockey and pop culture coexist?
So let me get this straight. You would be able to name more people nostalgically than currently? This doesn't
Come on.
It's crazy. I know.
Other podcast, Puck Soup, NHL analyst Greg Wyshynski, Sean McAdoo, and Ryan Lambert chase the conversational biscuit up and down the ice, skating between serious discussion on what's happening in pro hockey to irreverent opinions on movies, fast food, and life in general. Search Puck Soup on TuneIn to listen.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Trey Wingo here from ESPN's Golic and Wingo. Every morning, Mike Golic Jr. and I sit down to discuss all the news, drama, and highlights spinning the sports world that day. And with TuneIn, you can hear us whenever and wherever you go. Just search Golic and Wingo and start listening today.
Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more get back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races. To help keep you and your loved ones safe, TuneIn has the latest guidelines from the CDC. Home alone or with housemates, stay home as much as possible. Try to allow only people you live with into your home. Wash your hands. If you're sick, stay home and isolate from home.
Okay, you probably can see that we closed position just half an hour ago on euro at this level. So let me check how much broker paid me. £1,000. So from 113.23.5 at this level, and at this level it closed at 113.13.5. Total profit £1,000.
So we've got a nice broad rally going across right after the July 4th weekend. What's going on, Abigail?
It's certainly a very healthy rally. In fact, David, we're looking at the longest winning streak for the S&P 500 of 2020. Right now, the S&P 500 up for a fifth day in a row. That's the first time we've seen that since December of last year. And we have, as you were mentioning, all of the indexes participating to a wide degree. Now, some of this was set off by the big rally in China, multi-day rally there, parabolic move higher, spiking higher for those China stocks, really bleeding into all of the global equities. Really leading the way here in the U.S., though, David, some of the tech-heavy stocks. So from a sector perspective, from the 2020 terms, we're actually looking at defensive sectors on top, such as the communication services, along with consumer discretionary and tech, and really leading the way, the New York FANG Index up for a fifth day in a row, up 4.8% at this point, really surging. This is Amazon, of course, is above $3,000 for the first time ever. So the risk on mood that we saw last week on the better economic data continuing right into this week.
So, Abigail, listen, it's good news, and I'll take good news, but are we at all worried about some of the things you just talked about? I think the last time the Shanghai Composite went up this hard, this fast, it didn't end very well. And similarly, are we worried about Amazon being that far far over its 200-day moving average.
Terrific points, David, because the last time that the Shanghai Composite put in a move of this degree back in 2015, it went much longer and further than anybody expected, but it ended in basically a 50% crash. Whether or not that happens at some point for the Shanghai Composite or when is probably the bigger question, is unclear. But when it gets this frothy, it's really difficult to tell. And relative to Amazon, this stock is up about 80% from the March lows. Really incredible, unbelievably overextended. And this is nerve-wracking from the standpoint, this is the ultimate stay-at-home stock. So while you have this ultimate stay-at-home stock doing so well this year, while the